Heathrow, the same popular Heathrow Airport, they published its sustainability report. What caught my attention was that the carbon from flights in 2025 was 7% below 2029 levels. But on the surface, that sounds like a genuine progress, right? But here's the thing. In the same breath, the same Heathrow Airport is pressing ahead with the third runway, which is a £49 billion expansion that would increase flight capacity by a whopping 88%.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah, that was my reaction as well.
On today's episode, we have an incredible guest. He's the Chief Communication and Sustainability Officer of Heathrow.
Yeah.
He leads their carbon strategy, communications and sustainability and communities team. He joined Heathrow from Virgin Atlantic, where he was responsible for Virgin Atlantic's relationships with governments around the world. He's worked in the Department of Transport. He was private secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Environment and Transport, John Prescott, in the late 90s to early 2000s.
I'm absolutely aware that there are many opponents of Heathrow's operations today, as well as there are many opponents of Heathrow's potential growth in the future. Engaging with those parties is something I actually kind of enjoy. I enjoy hearing different perspectives. I enjoy having the challenge, as long as it's done constructively and respectfully. The way to deal with that is to be transparent. For me, the biggest challenge, the most understood thing, is that somehow you have to have one thing or the other. You either have to have the benefits of aviation, or you have to have the benefits of stopping aviation and then the supposed carbon benefits that will come from that. So I think the big challenge is to help people understand that actually we can have aviation growth, and we can do that at less cost to the environment. And I think that for me is the really big challenge that faces the aviation industry. We have to have the benefits of aviation, but at the same time we have to face into and address our environmental impacts and reduce those.
But there's a tendency in public debate to point the finger at airlines and aircraft manufacturers when we talk about aviation emissions. So what is Heathrow's actual role in terms of decarbonization of the sector, and where does the airport responsibility begin and end?
If we can't demonstrate that Heathrow expansion and the aviation growth is compatible with 2050 net zero, then we will not be given permission to build the third runway.
Welcome, everybody, to yet another episode of the Sustainability and Climate Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Labake, and I have with me Toby. Why are you starting off laughing?
Because it's a wonderful week. It's a good week. I'm excited because it's almost Friday, and I can't wait for our listeners to listen to this episode. But I'm excited. I'm fine. I'm good. Everything fresh. Everything nice, like I always say. And welcome, guys, to yet another episode. See, Labake does not give you guys the energy that I give when I start. Anyways, welcome, guys. Anyway, I'm good. How have you been, Labake?
I'm good. The first thing, I need to penalize you because yesterday was International Women's Day. You should have started off wishing every woman who listens to the podcast happy International Women's Day.
You didn't wait for me to finish. You didn't wait for me to finish. Oh, is that what you're going with? Exactly. You should have waited to see, okay if but you were too fast. I had that ready, but now you've taken away the shine. You've taken away the shine. But anyways, happy International Women's Month and happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women out there. Thank you for the energy, for the drive and the positivity you bring to our world. And we hope that this year will be a better year for everyone. And we hope that there will be policies and programs that we look into their affairs and also drive for the betterment of all the women on the earth. And I, on behalf of all the men, the listeners on the podcast, I want to say thank you for all the things you women do on the planet. And we hope that you guys continue to drive positive change around your homes, around the world, and anywhere you find yourself. So happy International Women's Month and happy International Women's Day. And you please now, Labake, you didn't allow me to do it the way I wanted to do it. But yeah,
good redemption. Good redemption. Yeah, I've been good. My week was good. Work is good. It's it's well into the year now. We have the first issue of the magazine. So I run a sustainability magazine. The first issue of the magazine is due out this week.
Okay.
Celebrating women, as I love to do.
Yeah.
So I'll be sure to share a link. Shameless plug there. I'll be sure to share a link to the magazine. But yeah, just like my weeks have been that, really putting together the magazine in line with International Women's Day, celebrating women. Yeah. How are you? How about you?
I'm good. As always, staying out of trouble, even though sometimes you don't believe. But yeah, I've been good. I've been working at a lot of things, and at the right time, when the food is ready, our listeners will know what I've been cooking.
You'll share it, Abby. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We're looking forward to that. So today we have a very exciting guest.
Yeah.
But before we get you into that, we have a few news items we want to kind of touch on. Okay, so I'm starting with the first thing on my news desk this morning. Germany-based firms, Green Synergy and REA Consult, are starting an engagement process with institutional investors and prospective off-takers for a large-scale power-to-liquid sustainable aviation fuel production project in the Patagonia region of Argentina. This is a $2.5 billion project.
Wow.
And it has support from the provincial government, and is expected to have an initial capacity of 100,000 tons of SAF per year, with its commissioning targeted for the early 2030s and eventually scale it to 500,000 tons per year. So yeah, the total capital investment is expected to reach about $2.5 billion, and it would really revolutionize is probably a better way to say it, the eSAF production capacity, increasing supply on the market. So I think that's very exciting. I saw that and I was quite
awesome. Okay, and I have a news to share. And this concerns our guests on the podcast today. And so Heathrow, the same popular Heathrow Airport, they published its sustainability report. And the headline what caught my attention was that the carbon from flights in 2025 was 7% below 2029 levels. And it says that the Sustainable Aviation Fuel, which is SAF, made up of 3.1% of all fuel used at the airport last year. But on the surface, that sounds like a genuine progress, right? But here's the thing. In the same breath, the same Heathrow Airport is pressing ahead with a third runway, which is a £49 billion expansion that would increase flight capacity by a whopping 88%.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah, that was my reaction as well. But I didn't, because it's alarming, right? To see that we are trying to see how we can reduce things, but and I guess every government has this reason why they are trying to build a third runway, because at the end of the day, we need to have this conversation, and that is why we on this podcast we keep having this growth and decarbonization as something that we talk about on the podcast, because the numbers are not always easy to reconcile when you look at the impact of these things, because 7% down while planning for nearly double the flights. And I believe that hopefully on this episode we'll find the reason why that has been done. And so we want you guys to stay put and listen while we invite our guests when it's time to bring in the guests on the podcast.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And our guest in a couple episodes ago, I believe it was Jennifer Holgram, who said, reality, right? So we're finding sustainable solutions, but also within the reality that we live in. So it'll be really interesting to hear more about kind of the strategy and the thought process behind, their decarbonization and reduction targets, but also their expansion targets. I think that'll be really interesting to see. But I think, there's also a world where, while we reduce or improve our footprint, we also understand kind of the demands on on those kind of infrastructures, and how we can sustainably expand them. But without much further ado,
before we further ado, I just want to say that you see right now as we record this episode, right, we all know the crisis that is going on, because the skies over the Middle East are partially closed. We are seeing airlines are either cancelling their flights or they are rerouting hundreds of flights, which is having a huge impact because that means that they'll be burning more fuel. They'll be because some flights are rerouting to other countries, and which means that they will be generating more emissions because it's not a good thing. But we just hope that everything gets settled on time, and our hearts are with the people who are being affected by the crisis that is going on in the Middle East, and we pray for peace and hopefully that this ends soon and lives will turn back to normal for people. So yeah, I just wanted to say that before you further ado, but now you can further ado about it.
Yes, no, very relevant and very timely. Our hearts go out to everyone. Yeah. On today's episode, we have an incredible guest. He's the Chief Communication and Sustainability Officer of Heathrow.
Yeah.
He leads the Carbon Strategy, Communications and Sustainability and Communities team. He joined Heathrow from Virgin Atlantic, where he was responsible for Virgin Atlantic's relationships with governments around the world. He's worked in the Department of Transport. He was private secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Environment and Transport, John Prescott, in the late 90s to early 2000s. He has a degree from Oxford University and a master's from University of Westminster. On the podcast today, we have Nigel Milton. So thank you so much, Nigel, for joining us on the podcast. We're super excited to speak with you about Heathrow, which I'm pretty sure all our listeners love and use. If they don't, now's the time to join. When you hear just how much work the Heathrow team is putting behind, sustainability integration at the airport. My first question is, from your perspective, what is the most misunderstood aspect of the aviation industry and the climate challenge that you face?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to be on with you, Toby, and Rebecca. Thank you very much for congratulations on how the podcast is going, and really happy, really honoured for you to invite me on, and happy to share my insights. So I think that aviation, as you just said, Rebecca, in your comment, most of the people watching this, listen to this, will fly, will have flown. Flying is a fantastic gift that we have around the world. It's a really important. I think the economic importance of aviation is understood, but the social importance of aviation as well. The ability to go and see friends and relatives, go on holiday, to go and see the world, cultural exchange is really, really vital. So aviation is a really important thing. It's a force for good. But it does have significant environmental and particularly carbon impacts. And I think so. The biggest kind of for me, the biggest challenge, the most understood thing is that somehow you have to have one thing or the other. You either have to have the benefits of aviation, or you have to have the benefits of stopping aviation and then the supposed carbon benefits that will come from that. So I think the big challenge is to help people understand that actually we can have aviation growth, and we can do that at less cost to the environment. And I think that for me is the really big challenge that faces the aviation industry. We have to have the benefits of aviation, but at the same time we have to face into and address our environmental impacts and reduce those. And that isn't something that we need to do in the future. That is something that we are doing now. And again, it's helping people understand and helping your listeners and your viewers who do fly now, so that they don't feel there's no sense of guilt or anything about flying. We can fly, and we can do that, and the world can be a better place. That, for me, is the big challenge.
Awesome. You see, when we started this episode, we talked about your report that recently came out, where the flight emission was down by 7%, and then SAF accounted for about 3.1% of the fuel used. What do you want to say about the recent reports?
Yeah, no, so thank you. Yeah, so last week our annual sustainability report was published. Really important that we're transparent on that. So please, I advise you on the Heathrow.com website, fully accessible is our sustainability report. So what that shows in terms of carbon, as you said, Toby, is that last year our carbon emissions are going down, even though we had more flights and more passengers than we've ever had before. So we're breaking that link between aviation growth and carbon growth, which was absolutely vital. And the main way in which we have delivered that over recent years is by the use of what are called Sustainable Aviation Fuel, so for short SAFs, SAF. And what those are a proven technology. They're an alternative to kerosene. You don't have to change the plane, you don't have to change the engines, and you can basically, I mean, I'm going to simplify this, but you basically pour in as much SAF as you can into the tank, stir it up with the kerosene, and that can go straight into the engines. But SAF has the key thing that it has 70% less of a carbon footprint over its life cycle carbon impact than kerosene does. Kerosene is kerosene, which is the fuel that has traditionally powered jet aircraft, is very carbon intensive. SAFs are a much lower carbon alternative. As a passenger, you'll notice no different at all. As a pilot, they notice no different at all. Still has the same power ratio, but the planet definitely notices the difference. And what we've been able to do at Heathrow is by having a very creative incentive in place, which essentially what that does is it incentivizes airlines to use SAF at Heathrow. We have become, over the last couple of years, the airport in the world where more SAF is used than any other. In 2024, that was 17% of the global total of SAF. We don't yet have the number for 2025, but we will share that as soon as we do. But we're assuming it's a roughly the same number for 25, but let's go on the 24 numbers. So the 2024 numbers, 17% of all of the SAF produced in the world was used, we used at Heathrow. But even using that 17% still only is a couple of percent of the overall fuel at Heathrow. So what we do have the numbers for, for 2025, that 3% of all of the fuel at Heathrow was used as SAF. So that still means that 97% is still kerosene. So we've still got a long way to go before we make real progress. But these are the early steps. But even that early steps in terms of being able to use 3% of all the fuel at Heathrow being SAF still makes a huge impact on the planet. For 2026, we're hoping to get above 5%, and our aim is to get to 11% by 2030. So you can see that year after year after year, we'll make this progress. So we're on course for 2050. Net zero in 2050 remains our ambition. And what we're seeing, though, is real delivery and real progress being made today, rather than something that's being pushed into the future.
So awesome, right? But there's a tendency in public debate to point the finger at airlines and aircraft manufacturers when we talk about aviation emissions, right? But we all know that airports are massive and economic ecosystem in their own right. So what is Heathrow's actual role in terms of decarbonization of the sector? And where does the airport responsibility begin and end?
Toby, it's a great question, because you're absolutely right that if you look at aviation's overall, if you look at the overall carbon impact that aviation makes, 95% of that is the flights. About 3 or 4% is how people get to and from the airports, and about 1% is actually what goes on at the airport itself. So you're absolutely right that the temptation is there to say, well, therefore, unless you deal with the flights, there's nothing. From an airport point of view, there's the 1% of our overall carbon footprint operating the airport, and then how people get to and from the airport. But every single bit does matter, though. So we put a lot of effort into how people get to and from Heathrow. We have a sustainable transport fund in place which subsidises bus services and rail services and active ways of getting into the airport. We have a drop-off charge for those of you who drive to the airport, and I know it's very unpopular that we have this terminal drop-off charge, but the money from that drop-off charge goes into funding the more sustainable the subsidies for more sustainable ways of getting to the airport. Because one of the issues about an airport is we're operating, the airport, people need to get to the airport 24 hours a day. So things like subsidizing bus services through the night, helping services be more frequent, those kind of things, we are able to work with local authorities and with Transport for London to make sure that the airport is as well served as it can be by transport. So looking at those, we also, the bus fleet that Heathrow uses has moved from being a petrol diesel fleet to it's now either a biodiesel or electric fleet. So we've seen huge progress since 2019 in reducing the airport's emissions from transport. And then as far as the actual buildings are concerned, although that's only 1% of our overall footprint, there still is things we can do to more efficiently light and heat and use power at the airport. So we are introducing more and more as we can kind of energy efficiency to make sure that the actual kind of footprint of the terminal buildings is as low as it can be. So you're right to point out that is only a part, and that the big chunk is the flights. But we feel that if we can do all we can on the bit that we can control, that then gives us more of a platform to work in collaboration with the government, with the airlines, with others, to help address the big issue, which is the carbon footprint of the flights.
So also.
Awesome. So I actually had a question. A couple episodes ago, we had the CEO of LanzaJet, Jennifer Holgram, on the podcast. And she spoke about all the work that, the stakeholders within the aviation industry are doing to, encourage sustainability and improve sustainability outcomes. And so one thing she kind of mentioned is we need to recognize and reward the early movers.
Yep.
And so I said that when we do have, you on the podcast, I was going to ask that what are some rewards that would
I can see where this is going.
What are some rewards that would be valuable for early movers in integrating sustainability at an airport, not for LanzaJet?
Yeah, for LanzaJet. No, I think So the early mover. I think that and the success of your podcast shows us people do care about. So while I think certainly those. The three of us can talk about the benefits of aviation. I think I hope I'm not making too much assumption to think that the majority of your listeners and viewers also think that aviation is a good thing, but they do care about their footprint. So I think if an airport can show that that and can demonstrate by not just through but through actual tangible progress and initiatives like our SAF incentive, if we can show we are taking steps, and I think that has a tangible benefit in terms of attracting passengers. I think it definitely, in terms of, if I look at a lot of people I work with, increasingly people want to work for a business that has got a sense of purpose, that has got a sense of values that align with their own, and so therefore I think our ability to attract talent, to retain talent is enhanced as well. So I think there are some real kind of tangible benefits of being seen to be a company that is taking these taking this issue really seriously and is showing and is taking a leadership role. Now there also though does come a cost with that, in that if you are a adopter of early technology, mistakes get made, investment can be quite expensive in kind of going first. So I think, because of the scale that Heathrow is, because of the fact that we can absorb some of that in a way that other airports might struggle to, and I think that's one of the things we see with the fact that it isn't a surprise that Heathrow has been able to attract so much sustainable aviation fuel by taking a leadership position, by moving first. We are finding that airlines work, the collaboration we have with airlines, the collaborations we have with the companies that are researching and investing in SAFs, they do want to work with us. So it becomes a self-fulfilling kind of virtuous circle. So I think that we are seeing at Heathrow an opportunity to role model, an opportunity to demonstrate to other airports what is in the art of the possible today. There's some really exciting things that is being looked at that will come in the future, whether that's electric flights, whether that's hydrogen flights, and Heathrow's going to be in the forefront of that. But being able to demonstrate what's actually happening today, to build up that credibility, to build up the proof points, to build up momentum, that we can do at Heathrow today. And I think that's a privileged position, and that's one that we are taking very seriously.
Awesome.
Fantastic. I love that response. Ambitious sustainability targets. You've set some very ambitious sustainability targets in addition to what you're already currently doing, one of which you've mentioned is the net zero target at 2050, 11% SAF operated flights by 2030. What have you found to be the most impactful levers in reducing emissions from you?
So in terms of the most impactful thing, I think in terms of numbers, in terms of what has had the biggest impact on reducing our carbon footprint. It has been the SAF incentive and the reduction of SAF. But I think that there's a degree to which that is potentially hidden from passengers, and they may not be aware. So while that has probably had the biggest impact on the planet in terms of awareness, I would say the move towards our fleet of vehicles around the airport, the buses that people get, those moving from being diesel and petrol fuel to being electric and biodiesel, which we advertise, and so that passengers can actually see now and experience that when they are traveling around the airport, this is an airport that is making tangible steps towards its net zero future. I think for me that has been a real, because I think that it is important that passengers can see progress. And one of the things about SAF is that you, as I said earlier, you'd have no idea if you're on the plane about whether your plane is kerosene fueled or SAF fueled. So while we can talk about the numbers, you wouldn't experience that. But I think if you are going around the airport, if you are seeing initiatives such as, the electrification, moving away from more more carbon intensive ways of getting around the airport, then you can feel as though real progress is being made.
Awesome. You see, one of the things that strikes me about airports as an environment is how much of the carbon footprint sits in the hands of people who don't work directly for Heathrow. Now we're looking at the airlines, we're looking at the ground handlers, the shops, the restaurant, the passengers themselves making choices about how they get to and from the airport. How do you actually influence emissions that are technically not yours?
Yeah. So through collaboration, I think, the SAF incentive is a financial one, so that is a commercial incentive. In that, what happens is that if you fly, if you're an airline and you are flying into Heathrow, out of Heathrow using SAF, you pay slightly less for your landing charges. Actually, you pay quite a lot less. And if you are using just pure kerosene, you pay slightly more. And because of the percentages, the essentially we're able to transfer that incentive across, and therefore the airline, it reduces the costs for the airlines of using SAF, and they're incentivized to do so. So that is something that we can do. We can't do that without collaboration. That is a process we agreed with the airlines and with the government, with our regulator. So there are ways we can do, Toby, where we can work with the airlines in collaboration. We can look at what are the ideas, what are the incentives. We can guide. We can we can put the infrastructure in place. So, for example, the example we were just talking about in terms of electric vehicles, we can put the infrastructure in place for charging and to make it much more attractive and available to the airlines and the other companies, the ground handling companies and the transport companies, the bus companies, the taxi companies that work around Heathrow. So there's infrastructure we can put in place. There's incentives that we can put in place to help guide, and then there is just talking and leadership as well. I think that by taking a strong position on these issues, that encourages others to also take a strong position and to maybe trial and test bed things at Heathrow that they might not do elsewhere. So it becomes it becomes reinforcing that, okay, if we want to do some interesting innovative things on decarbonization, let's do it at Heathrow.
Awesome. SAF, as you've mentioned, is kind of one of the biggest near-term solutions for aviation, as we've spoken about consistently on in this episode. What do you think needs to happen, both commercially and policy-wise, for us to scale SAF meaningfully through hubs like Heathrow?
Yeah, because you're actually right that the big issue with SAF is just simply isn't enough of it. Isn't enough of it today, so we need more of it. So, and there is a big role for governments to play in encouraging that through policy. So the UK government has introduced a mandate, and not just the UK government, other governments around the world have introduced mandates. And what the mandate says basically, as we go forward into the future, that an increasing percentage of the fuel uploaded at airports needs to be SAF. So what that does is it creates a market. It creates demand, because the airlines, in order to meet these mandates, are going to have to need more SAF. So the demand's there. So that creates the market. How do you then encourage on the supply side? And the what we have been saying to it is an expensive technology to start up on. The launch cost of setting up refineries and to create the infrastructure to produce SAF is a significant investment. So if you are an investor wanting to look at this business, there are some incentives, there is some work that the government can do to help you have the confidence. In the same way that in the past the government did the same with wind power and with solar. And with solar power, that they created what's called a revenue certainty mechanism, which then gives investors the confidence that if they invest in this new technology, that there is going to be a market there that is going to at a guaranteed price that is going to buy their product. So we've just seen that going through the UK government at the moment to the UK Parliament at the moment to come into act to put into place this revenue certainty mechanism. So if we've got the mandate and we've got the revenue certainty mechanism, then we just need the commitment and the commitment from industry, from ministers going forward. I think we need some political consensus as well. It hasn't been helpful in the UK that we kind of flip-flop. Are we looking at net zero future or not? That creates uncertainty as well. So we need political momentum behind it. We need the industry to understand that SAF is for the foreseeable future is a guaranteed way we can reduce our carbon footprint as a sector. If we get that together, then I'm very confident we'll see a lot more SAF produced as we go through the 2020s and then particularly into the 2030s.
Fantastic.
All right. So now the big one, the third runway. This is a £49 billion project that has been debated, litigated, and legislated for decades, right? And the government has backed it. And I also read that Heathrow has begun work on the planning application. But environmental groups are clear. They believe that it is incompatible with the UK net zero's commitments. There's this carbon brief who also estimated a forest twice the size of London would need to be planted to offset the emission from Heathrow, Gatwick, and Luton expansion combined. How do you genuinely hold those two things together, growth and climate?
Yeah, well, so I mean, so that comes back to the question right at the beginning there, Toby. That if we can't, it's a simple kind of equation, really. If we can't demonstrate that Heathrow expansion and the aviation growth is compatible with 2050 net zero, then we will not be given permission to build the third runway. So we've been really clear that we will not proceed with the planning. Although we've started, you said, we wait to see what is in the draft airports national policy statement, which the government have said they will be publishing later on in the year. That will be voted on in Parliament. Then once that's final, we will then be going through a planning process in 2027, 2028. We will not, at the end of that process in 2029, we will not secure permission for a third runway if we have not been able to demonstrate during that process that we can deliver a third runway and which is compatible with the UK's climate change, both domestic and international obligations. So it's while I could there are we can be more efficient aircraft, more use of SAF. There are ways in which we can get that pathway through. I totally understand that that's me as a senior executive at Heathrow saying that, so therefore people are like, well, I don't trust you, so they should do, but they don't. Yes, I get that. So therefore, this isn't going to be my decision. It isn't going to be, if I say we can, we will. This will go through a planning process through the planning inspectorate. Ultimately, it will be the politicians will decide. If we haven't made that case, we won't get approval for the third runway. So I think that's my response to the people. I recognise the comments that you've made there, Toby, and I respect that point of view. My response to it is, if you're right and we're not able to show that you're wrong, then we won't get permission. Awesome. All right, thank you.
Awesome. I think there's also the flip side, which I'm really interested to see. That if you are able to prove that you are, then it kind of provides almost a blueprint for other people to see that it is possible to have, I'm really excited about.
This is the really exciting part about my brief at Heathrow. I think that there is that opportunity for us to show a different way in which you can deliver all of the economic and social benefits of aviation without without so many of the negative impacts. And I think that if we can do that, there is a huge opportunity at Heathrow to do that in the right way, to try out new things. Even because the building the third runway as well, it's not just about the flights, it's about the construction as well. How can you build infrastructure in a lower carbon way? What are the products that are coming online, whether that's low carbon steel, low carbon concrete, the construction methods you use, logistics hubs, so where you kind of what's the way in which you can approach the whole supply chain and the whole way in which big projects are built. I think when I talk to my colleagues here at Heathrow, when I think about it myself, I think that's incredibly exciting. That there is the opportunity at Heathrow to do something very special.
Awesome.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. So this intersection is something that I'm passionate about, and I work in the intersection of sustainability and communications, and you oversee both of those things at Heathrow, right? I think it's important. Communications within the sustainability sector is really important in that building trust and transparency, and helping people to understand kind of the value of what it is they're investing with their resources, whether it's time, whether it's their money, whether it's their support. How important would you then say is trust and transparency when engaging with the public on aviation's climate impact, and how do you approach that at Heathrow?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. It's so important. It's I mean, it is a privilege, as you said, to operate in that kind of intersection between communications and sustainability, and I know that there are some who say, well, the fact that I've got both roles just shows that therefore our focus on sustainability is all just about how can we spin our way out of it, but it isn't. It's actually the exact opposite of that. It's how can we better communicate and understand our stakeholders' concerns, adapt to those, and then then come back with a positive, credible story. Trust and transparency has to be at the heart of that. I'm absolutely aware that there are many opponents of Heathrow's operations today, as well as there are many opponents of Heathrow's potential growth in the future. And engaging with those parties is something I actually kind of enjoy. I enjoy hearing different perspectives. I enjoy having the challenge, as long as it's done constructively and respectfully. The way to deal with that is to be transparent. I said right at the beginning of this interview, our sustainability report is published on our website. Please do go and look at it. If you or others who are listening to this have comments on it, then please do share those with us at Heathrow. We know we need to get better. There's more that we need to do. We don't have the answers to all the questions, but that just because you don't have the answer doesn't mean to say you shouldn't start out on the journey. We know where we need to get to. And we've got some plans to get there. But no, we don't have the answers to everything. We haven't claimed to ever have the answer to everything. So I think having that honesty, having the understanding the real nature of the challenge that we face, I think trust is a really important aspect of communications and of sustainability. We are very clear that we won't play fast and loose with the truth. There's different. People can have different interpretations, but we will stick to facts. We will stick to a robust process, and we will be transparent about that. And that's all I can do. All I can do is stick to that robust process, stick to that transparency, and hope that does help people build up some trust. But this is aviation, third runway at Heathrow, incredibly emotive issues that people have very strong, long-held views on, and I am seeking to challenge those views, because I'm saying no. I accept in the past we didn't have. In the past, the environmental impacts weren't properly taken into account. They weren't properly considered. That isn't the case now. But I do understand that I can't just say that. We need to demonstrate that. But I'm hoping that through the steps that we're taking over the last few years, that people can see that we're already making progress, not just on carbon, but on other sustainability issues as well, and that we are deserving of people giving us that trust and coming along on that journey with us, because the prize is so big. If we can find a way to deliver the benefits of, and to show people that we can, not just to find a way, but to show people that there is a way in which you can deliver the economic and social benefits of aviation, while reducing its environmental impacts. That is a huge prize that it is worth going on the journey to obtain.
Awesome. So we're coming to our final question, and I want to zoom all the way out, right? So by 2035, just 9 years from now, the ambition is for flight to take off from the new Heathrow runway.
Yeah.
And by 2050, aviation has committed to net zero. So earlier in the conversation, I was talking to Labake about the Middle East airspace that is closed, and flight emissions are fluctuating week on week based on the geopolitics. Against that backdrop, what genuinely gives you confidence, and what keeps you up at night?
Okay.
Big question.
Yeah, it is a great question. So, what keeps me up? I mean, what keeps me up at night from this from this agenda? Let's do the things that keep me awake first. I think that we don't have all of we don't yet have all the answers, but there is, and SAF does need to be the question that we were just talking about in terms of how do we get more SAF. We do need to scale that up. That we do scale up that quickly. I worry about the lack of policy consistency and political consensus about this, and that the signals that sends to potential investors is this an industry they should. And then building out the issue with just trust, building up that public trust. We need to we need to make sure we stay grounded on facts, grounded on evidence, so we can build up. So that's those are my concerns. But what gives me confidence and the optimism is that the technology is progressing, it is real. We are using more and more SAF year on year. We are using more SAF at Heathrow. We are seeing our overall, the carbon footprint at Heathrow through other means also decrease year on year. And then the industry is aligned. That I think there is all around the world, airlines and airports understand that there is a key role they need to play. But I think the biggest thing that gives me confidence is that I think that the public around the world see how important aviation is to them. Aviation is not something that is a luxury. It's a vital part of the modern world. It's of how we live our lives, whether that's for business, whether it's for pleasure and holidays, whether it's for visiting friends and relatives. The aviation plays a key role. If something is important, then there is the motivation to find ways in which you can protect that while advancing and while using kind of innovation. So I think the motivation for me, what is in business companies, is that there is an understanding of the key role that aviation does play today and will play in the future. There is an understanding that its environmental impacts need to be reduced. Put those two things together, there is so much incentive to crack this, and that is what gives me the greatest confidence.
Awesome. You see, before I let you go, I want to take a moment, right? Because I think it's easy when we talk about sustainability at this scale to talk about targets, to talk about the percentage and the policy frameworks, and all of that matters enormously, right? But behind all of it are the people who show up every day to navigate the complexity that most of us never see. People who have to hold together the demands for growth and the demands of the planet. You're one of those people, because the work you do at Heathrow, the conversations that you have that don't even make the headlines, the decision you push for that take years to land, the commitment to transparency even when it's uncomfortable. I think that matters, and it's not glamorous, it's not simple, but I think it is very necessary. So on behalf of our listeners across more than 100 countries, many of whom are doing their own little version of this work in their own sectors and community, we want to say thank you. Thank you for the seriousness with which you take it. And thank you for being honest with us today. And also thank you for believing that we can get there. Because see, this podcast exists to amplify the voices of people who are doing the work that the future demands of. And you're one of them, because aviation is not an easy sector to defend when it comes to climate conversation. But I would say this, that you've defended it with honesty and with a genuine reckoning about what needs more to be done. Because when you had ambition and accountability, it's something that is very rare. And this is me speaking out of the fact that we've had conversations with people, I've read articles, I've read materials, and it's exactly what I believe this moment deserves. And I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, for lending your voice towards this conversation. And I'm very, very sure that our listeners who would enjoy this conversation, because I remember telling Labake at the beginning of this episode that one question I want to ask was the third runway. And to be honest, I love the way you answered it. And this is me being 6 years. So I believe that this episode will be a gift to our listeners. And on their behalf, I don't want to speak for Labake because I'm sure she will speak for herself. I want to say that we are grateful and thank you for the amazing work that you do, Nigel. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Well, Toby, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you, as I said right at the beginning, thank you so much for having me on the podcast and giving me the opportunity to share my views with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't have much else to add to that. Toby loves to give our guests, their flowers, as he says. And he does it so well, so I don't challenge it. But thank you so much for your generous knowledge in this episode. We look forward to following the Heathrow journey. We will be sure to link and share the sustainability report as well for our listeners. So go read, go find all the details. And Nigel has said, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send it to them.
And Toby, I'm very happy to come back whenever you think's the right moment to be held to account on update you on progress, but also with if your listeners and subscribers have got some comments and questions and things that they want to play, very happy to keep the conversation going, because the two of you are really important communicators that will help us get the message out. So anything I can do to help the two of you continue to be a great success, please let me know.
All right, thank you so much, Nigel.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that,
bye, guys.
See you in the next episode, everybody.
All right, bye, guys.